or I can.
All right, I think you had the next question.
I will attempt to stitch these together, these two recordings. Where did you get to in the agenda? Are we on number
We were
5?
still talking through your last. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I was just curious about the list. I would expect it to be filtered to issues, but I don't know. I can see Nick said it was discussed somewhere.
Yeah, I think Donald made the same proposal. I think my concern with that is like we don't typically pre-filter lists, and I just worry that it would be confusing to like why it would be there. We also know that some teams use that list as the incident / issues, like to manage both of those things simultaneously, which would mean every single time they're like clearing a filter. I could see like, I mean, I see the argument for it that if you create a bunch of tasks, like then you're gonna have potentially a lot of noise in there, but we might kind of wait and see if we get that feedback.
Yeah, it raises a couple of other questions as well. Like, should the badge with the count on it include all work items then? Or just issues, or just issues and incidents? Or like, what should that number be, and how do people reason about it?
What is it today? It's everything, right? Anything that has anything that's within like an issue and has an issue type. Is that true?
It's a good question.
Yes, it is everything now. I mean, recently it was issue, incident, and something, but yeah, I changed it recently to everything. But yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how we're treating it, right? Like we're calling, I mean, it goes back to this like broader confusion of issues meaning two things, but like we're basically treating it as issues, the like superset of uh anything that could be an issue, but not specifically the issue type issue. Which if you think of it like work items, we're basically calling this like all work items, which I think is fine. I think that makes sense for now. It's also how like Jira and stuff works. You have to kind of sub filter once you go in. So I think that's all right, but we should definitely like keep looking at that and finding ways to make it better.
Isn't that more confusing though? Like, because issue is just a type of work item now. It's not, they're like, nothing is of type issue except issue. So like, do we need to think more long term about like removing issues and putting work items there instead? Like, or it feels
Yeah,
like
I don't think that we'll either need to like correct the terminology or change the UI or both at some point so that it's not, well, and you're also gonna have epics in here, so there's already gonna be a change potentially as like if epics and issues end up getting sort of more sort of coupled into one list.
we already have requirements as well. So, you know, if this was a work items list instead of an issues list, then like if people need easy access to one type, I don't see why we couldn't just have that type in the sidebar and point it to a pre-filtered work items list, at least for a short period, you know. But currently the fact that you click on issues and you see all different types of work items, to me is just more confusing, because we know there are issues under the hood. Like currently we intend them to be like not issues under the hood, but they're in the issues table, right? But we call them work items, we consider them work items, and we consider issues to be like one type of work item. So to me it's more confusing that we call it issues in the sidebar, but when you click it you get a whole bunch of other things, you know.
I think right now though we call them issue types. I mean, I wasn't here when those decisions were made, or kind of what the discussion was, but like that was sort of my understanding. It's like we're initially started by treating them all as issues, and they have issue types, and that's why they show up there. This isn't really like a new problem with tasks, but tasks are probably gonna, or could probably scale to a larger degree than like incidents or requirements or test cases. do, I would guess.
Yeah, it's possibly like an evolution of nomenclature over time, but definitely the feedback I'm seeing on issues related to requirements is that people do not want them to be issues, right? And this confusion is like disappointing for some customers, like who think that we're going to make requirements issues like everything else, and they're going to be closable and have all these other like assignable and things like that. And they're like, this doesn't make sense for requirements. And that's not what we're trying to do, but our current like setup seems to indicate that. So maybe like, yeah, in the like late short to short medium term, like we need to retire the idea that these are issue types at all and start calling them work items everywhere, in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, that's a good point with the requirements, and I think we should probably look at that specifically as to, because I think like tasks and issues like obviously are very tightly correlated. I don't know that much about requirements or how people perceive them, but if they're perceived as a separate object type, then we probably do want to treat them differently. Just from a list perspective anyway.
They go through different states for a start. That's the main thing. They shouldn't be like closable, because that's not a concept. They should be archivable, and we made a mistake originally and allowed people to close requirements because they were coupled with their own issue, and this was really confusing for people. They were able to close the requirement issue or work item type, and then that was copied over to the requirement itself, and it was just really confusing. So I think like the sooner we can start using work items as just common language for everything that is a work item type, the better.
Yeah, is that the plan to use work items, like the work items terminology in the UI at all?
I'm not sure that there's an answer defined for that at the moment. I think it could be, but it could also be like we could probably also just use like planning or plan or something related to like the notion of planning as basically the way to get into the views. But yeah, like if requirements can be built as a work item from our perspective, but it doesn't necessarily have to be presented as a work item to the user. So I think like that's something that we should investigate and determine the best way to present that information.
I've seen a lot of exploration around just putting it under kind of like a planning umbrella, like you said, Nick. Like they're all just within the umbrella of plan, and then the types of objects are almost like templates over, types of templates in a way that enable planning. So I think we're exploring that in navigational explorations and foundations as well. So we could loop in with them.
Cool. And so like, also, regardless of the naming of it, is there a plan to have a view on maybe it's linked on the left sidebar, or just anywhere, a view of every single work item, like in one, including things like requirements and tasks and issues and epics and everything? Or are we always going to have kind of a limited list within either, regardless of what we call it? Like, so if we continue having issues on the left hand sidebar, are we always going to have things outside of issues in that list?
Issues and like the legacy issue, like type issue sort of sense.
Yeah.
I would say probably not, only because as issues or as work item types expand, especially if we enable like custom types and stuff, like we're gonna have to move towards a more generic sort of container for those, and then allow people to create like basically saved filters or something. And now maybe there's a way for those saved views to show up there. Like, I think that's something that, we're looking at how you would do that. And you could, we could provide a default saved view that is just issues, and like that would basically get you there. But whether that shows up in the sidebar or whether that shows up once you're in the like planning space, I think is still to be determined.
Cool. Yeah, I think so right now going to issues is a bit more confusing because everything in that list looks like an issue, looks the same. Once we add like the task icon and some of the other icons to that list, I think it'll be a little, we won't have some of the problems maybe that we have with confusing the different issuable types that we have within that list. All right. Martin, you had a question around the docs and feature flags.
Oh, yep. So when you were demoing work items, I checked the docs and we only mentioned the work items feature flag. And so I asked, do we need to update the docs, or since you mentioned we're going to be removing the create from Markdown flag, do we just want to ignore it? And then I got lost. And then Kushal said, which I think he also said during his demo, that he wants to update the docs to reflect current state. To which I say thank you.
Yeah, I think as long as we have feature flag around and it is controlling the behavior on UI, we can at least have the docs up to date so that anyone who is working on these features should be able to find the correct feature flag and enable those to try it out.
Awesome. If I can do a non sequitur, to go back for a second, Donald asks about work items in the UI, and I think we will need to make a decision somehow. And what Nick said, planning together. Well, if we only pick this, it will still like take us to awkward places with wording, because right now I am thinking about the docs, and with all the things that you can link, linked issues, linked epics. Now Respond is adding linked resources to incidents as well. I was thinking of creating a page that would link to these. So we would add it to the tooltip, to the question mark button on the linked items widget. And then, because right now, I don't think we have this question mark button, but if we had linked items and then it would have task, but it still takes you to linked issues documentation page. So I was thinking how to call it, this page, and either we start calling these just items, or I don't know. Like I would appreciate like a PM input on this as well, but I think we could introduce work items to the users. Sorry for breaking the sequence.
Yeah, we'll have to introduce it sooner than later. I just think like right now, because we're using task for everything, like there's a risk that we confuse people by like 3 places calling it task and 1 place calling it work item, when work item only means task for the current moment. But I think that probably deserves more of a rollout plan of like at some point basically communicating that like this is what work items are and what's going to be entailed, and like that's there kind of in the docs, but it's not really in the UI, or like I don't think we can rely on every user like finding that page.
Thanks. Shall I move to to mine, or do we want to end? Because we're at time, past time.
I'm okay to press on.
Well, anyway. Oh yeah. Okay. So I noticed we have a CC quick action, and it's not in the docs, and it's never rendered. Well, it's always rendered when people type it out. And so Heinrich, and so I asked if we should just remove it, and that's the question to my UX folks primarily, because it's not doing anything, and it's the same as just typing CC without the slash or just mentioning somebody. And yeah. So Heinrich mentioned that it was added to support no op actions.
Yeah, I don't see any context to why it was added, but yeah, I guess it doesn't really save you any keystrokes, right? Because it's you slash /cc, click down and enter, it types for you the @ but then you type 2 keystrokes to get one free @.
Yeah.
I use it very often, but I never questioned why I use it. Just like, oh, this quick action is available. Gotta use it.
Yeah.
So there's a slight wording difference in the to-do, right? Like, and it depends if you use the person's what's the username at the start of the line or in the body of text. And I wonder if it's also depends if you use CC with a slash or CC without a slash. If you use it with a slash, it's a quick action. And then the user name. There's no like technical difference. Like, I think it's just slight different wording on the to-do.
Is it though? I don't know.
No, the to-do is only the directly addressed to-dos only happen when the mention is like at the very start of the note, I think, if I'm not mistaken, not really the start of the line. Like, it's just really at the very start of the note.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the first thing. And actually, there's a group working on removing that because apparently it was causing confusion around users. So we actually already only display on to-dos someone mentioned you, even if you are directly addressed. We are not showing directly addressed anymore. It's on the process of being removed. Yep.
So my question is it worth to remove the action if it doesn't do anything? And if I did that, how likely it is that something breaks?
If some specs breaks, it means like you just have to delete those specs, I guess. If it's
I haven't.
testing.
Okay, I didn't know this technique, but yeah, delete your failing test.
I don't know of any other quick action that remains in the body of text that's executed, but also remains in the body of text. So maybe it serves as an example to future. I don't know. This is a terrible reason to keep it. There is no good reason to keep it as far as I can see.
Or do we add a feature to it?
Yeah, like make it do something.
Yeah. Like this, I linked to the CC filter on to-dos. I mean, I guess we could. Yeah, I don't know. But so I think as a user that uses the quick action just because it will throw me off if it's no longer available. I don't know if it'll throw off others too. Because I don't do the full /cc user. I do /c and then I expect it to be autofilled. So it'll just mess with my muscle memory there. But I don't know if that's a reason enough to keep it.
I was going to say the same. If we remove it, there will be people complaining about it on Slack threads and on the issue, even though it does nothing, but the muscle memory is a thing.
You can try feature flag it, I guess, and start with GitLab members, like GitLab team, GitLab org or something.
There's bound to be some hidden piece of functionality somebody uses it for somewhere, and we'll get the feedback if we do that.
Like the XKCD comic that someone's using their overheating processor to make coffee. Right. Well, then I don't know what to do. I guess I'll leave it.
I wonder how
But
many times this
maybe-
conversation has been had in meetings before, like about this quick action, and that has been the conclusion every time. Just leave it alone. It's
Well, okay, no, I'm changing my mind. So I'm gonna add it to the quick actions doc and say that it does nothing. But at least it's there. So the next person that finds it knows that it's intentional.
I think we should also create a issue proposing that we remove it, just to see if we get a lot of
Somebody
angry
opposes.
comments. Yeah.
Okay. Do you wanna DRI it?
Yeah. I
don't wanna deal with people.
Yeah, I found a 5-year-old issue that says make CC do something. So
Oh, you did? There we go.
Citizen.
That's got 21 votes.
Well, but it doesn't say delete it. It says make it do something.
It also says also introduce BCC. There's no proposal for what it should do.
How about CC? Yeah, how about CC sends a carbon copy to your registered post address? Then does something.
Do we have a confidential note quick action?
No. Oh, interesting. So yeah, but this would be like a confidential to do, right? In a note? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like
So-
do we have a quick action to make the note confidential? That's a good question. I don't actually know. Internal, not confidential. No, I don't see one.
All right. Well, we really got time now.
Cool. Thanks.
All
See
right.
y'all later.
Everyone.
Bye.